Okay, panel 2 on education. Kathrine Schlageck and Kim Richards of the museum staff are going to be leading this. Kathrine has run the Ed department at the Beach Museum of Art since 1995. She's been here longer than I have. She was previously the Director of Education at the Lyman Allen Art Museum and the Webb Dean Stevens Museum, both in Connecticut. Schlageck received her MA in Museum Studies and American History at the College of William and Mary before serving as the Assistant Curator of Education and Education Coordinator at the Nantucket Historical Association. Her areas of expertise include integrated curriculum development and visual literacy. At the Beach Museum of Art, Schlageck connects visitors of all ages to the art collection, so has developed programs that are very broad in terms of the groups targeted. In addition, she is an online instructor for Kansas Child Care Training Opportunities, teaching a course called Building Skills Through Art. She also works with K-State pre-education students and is a certified visual thinking strategies facilitator and mentor. And she's a native of Emporia, even though she spent time in the Northeast. Kim Richards has been engaging with visitors at the Beach Museum of Art for 16 years. Her passion for museum education began in a docent position. She stepped away from museum work for 5 years to work as an elementary school math interventionist. And Richards has been the Beach Museum of Art's lead gallery teacher since 2012, working with visitors ranging in age from pre-K to older adults. She is also a trained VTS facilitator.
I also want to recognize Haley Walker, who is our education intern. And we have produced 2 packets of materials for you. One is a packet of worksheets that Haley has developed, and we'll have a chance to take these into the galleries so that you can look at them. She's also developed these into looking activities that we use on our Beach Buddies Facebook group, which is a Facebook group for families and teachers. And then there's a second packet of materials that outlines some of the visual thinking strategies that we'll talk about a little bit later. So, but I wanted to start out with a quote from Superintendent Evan Evans of the Winfield Public Schools. "We have the theory we can do more for the children than just give them reading, writing, and arithmetic. We'd like to give them something the depression can't take from them. We are working on the belief that we might be able to give the boys and girls some new doors to open." And I think that's really what the public art in the schools did for the kids. And what I want to do is talk a little bit today about how looking at art builds a wide number of skills. So it's not just art history. And I want to just mention that one of the things that we're particularly interested in as we do programming here at the museum is this idea of enabling the kids to take skills away with them. Starting with just the whole idea of visual literacy, because I think we are living in a society which really requires you to be much more visually literate when you think about all the different types of communications you take in, but also all sorts of critical thinking, communication skills, things like that. So I want to use the collection just a little bit, the exhibition, and just talk about some of the different things that we can do. And of course, art and language arts have fantastic ties. All sorts of creative writing, story starters, ekphrastic poetry, and many, many times we will use works of art to inspire poetry or to have sort of more imaginative writing activities. So you can imagine using these pieces, as story starters, just right off the bat. Of course, integrating the social sciences, cultural studies, history. Many of these sets were, created to literally teach about different parts of the world. But we also, and this is where Kara and I really tie together, is the idea of an artwork being material culture. And there is a worksheet in one of these packets that we use with high school and college students. And you can see that the Victory Liberty Loan poster would be a great piece to look at how art represents a particular period of time, how it was supposed to make you think, talking about, art being, created for propaganda purposes. So I think there's a lot more thinking that can be done than just sort of the everyday social studies, let's learn about, a different country. We do a lot of work with science, and of course art is based on observation. And so we have a tour called Fine Art of Observation, and that tour focuses on different activities that help kids develop those looking skills. Scientific drawing. Of course, topic-wise, we can tie to weather, to habitats, environmentalism. Our Picturing Kansas tours really work that way, but you can see here, 2 examples that would be great for scientific drawing. We also do a tour, and you will have a chance to sort of try this, that we developed for first grade, and Berger Sanzane happens to be perfect for this tour. And it's a tour on light and color, and we talk about refraction, but we also talk about reflection, about how the eye sees. And one of the activities, and this is a first grade tour that we really have fun with, is the kids will take Sanzane paintings and paint chips, and they will have a pile, and they'll go through and start out by finding all the different colors. Then they can separate them into color groups, so blues, purples, reds. And then we can also do a little math because they count how many that they find and we add them up. But it really gets them thinking about how, with a very limited palette, how Sanzane created all those wonderful colors. It's one of the favorite activities. We do a math tour. There wasn't quite as much geometry in this exhibition as we like to use, but you'll all walk under the Kansas meatball later, which is sort of our big math piece. But certainly perspective. We can talk about proportion in sculptures. So there's all sorts of ways that we can tie math in. So the integrating part with subject matter is really important, but we also really want to think about the critical thinking skills. So the sorting, we have a curatorial project that the kids do, and you'll be able to try that in the back. Comparing and contrasting, inference, linking, all of these skills are part of looking at a work of art. So I think that's something that no matter what subject we're integrating with, we're always building the skills. So I'm going to have Kim Richards take you through a technique called visual thinking strategies. And this was actually designed by an educator from Harvard University's Project Zero, the Harvard Graduate School, and a museum educator at the Museum of Modern Art. And the idea of this was that they wanted to think about how people learn aesthetically, but the museum educators also noticed that the sort of winky-blink little tour that you typically were getting at an art museum where this is a blah, 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 the kids weren't remembering anything. So there are a lot of things that get built in this. And so one of the things, Kim's going to facilitate this, and then afterwards we're going to kind of break it down a little bit and think about some of the skills that it builds.
Hello, can you all hear me? Seems loud. So I'm going to ask you to take a quiet moment to let your eye roll over this image, top to bottom, left to right, and then in a moment I'll have a question for you. Before I ask you my question, I'd like to say that I'm not looking for a right answer. This is about what you bring to this artwork today. And so my question is, what's going on in this picture? Yes?
A casual discussion?
So kind of drawing our attention to these figures here, thinking maybe they're having a conversation about lighthearted topics. What do you see that makes you say this might be casual?
they're all sort of not focused on each other with their eyes, and I feel like if it were important, they would be a little more intense, locked in on each other. Casual hand gestures, relaxed posture with some of the people.
So several things, most of them dealing with body language. You've noticed the casualness or the relaxed way that they've positioned their bodies. Hand gesturing seems to be just very informal. And then their eye contact, they're not focused on each other, their eyes are all looking in different places. And you're feeling that if it was a more important conversation, they would be really tuned into each other. Is that fair assessment? Okay. What more? Yes, Karen.
Also, the pipe and the hat kind of indicate casualness. Right? Like if it was a formal conversation, you think everyone would take their hats off.
Okay.
Right? And kind of to be smoking in the middle of a conversation also kind of indicates maybe familiarity, or it's not a business conference.
Okay. So again, some more actions that you're observing, some more subtle actions that lend to that idea of informalness in this conversation. One being the presence of smoking during the conversation, and then also still wearing a hat during this time. Thinking that if this was a more formal thing, like maybe a business conversation or something more important being discussed, that they would have a little bit more, I want to say, formal or less casual actions during the meeting or the concession. Okay. Yes.
Well, I don't see, to me this isn't comfortable. So like the people are not comfortable with each other. Like the man with the hat, his hand is, it's like what? Kind of like, that gesture. And they're both men are looking our direction, kind of as if, it's almost as if it's a discussion with in-laws. It's like, okay, kind of thing. And then the color, of course, is like fallish. So it's like in the fall, maybe, when they're maybe talking about getting together for Thanksgiving or
Okay. So a little different idea to, we've started out with the idea that this may be a casual conversation, but you're feeling a little bit of tension. Is that a fair word? Yeah. A little bit of tension in this piece as you look at it. You're not feeling like that these individuals are comfortable with each other. Some of the things that you point out to support that idea is this gesture here is like, what? You're saying what? And they're not looking at each other, and they're looking out this way, so not making that general eye contact. You related it to a conversation that might be uncomfortable between in-laws, or like with in-laws, which you're relating as an uncomfortable situation. And then you also are trying to place this into a time of year. You're looking at that color. And may I clarify, when you're referring to fall colors, where are you kind of focused on? Are you focused on
the reds and the yellows, and then you look through and the tree doesn't really, it has a few leaves, but not really.
Okay.
The grass is still green, so, it hasn't frosted and the grass isn't dead yet, but the colors and like the curtains and the flower are kind of all.
So kind of looking at these maybe interior colors, if we're thinking of curtains, and this floral here on the table, have that red and orange that gives that fall feeling. Also, though, looking outside, what might be through a window, you're noticing a tree there that is leafless, and recognizing that the grass is still green. Maybe the frost hasn't been super hard yet, so we're maybe not into a hard fall, but feeling like it's that time of year. And you also related that back to the type of conversation. Maybe we're trying to plan what's happening at Thanksgiving, and sometimes those planning things don't go smoothly, so you're feeling that tension. Is that a fair assessment of what? Okay. Yes. What more? Yes.
I guess kind of building on that feeling of tension and uncomfortableness, it looks like that the two men in the front are looking at you, the viewer, as if you're the person that's supposed to settle the possible disagreement that they have.
Okay.
On the left kind of has an expression of, can you believe this schmuck?
Okay. So kind of building on that second thought that this might be an uncomfortable conversation, because we have two ideas kind of floating out here, but that second idea that you want to build on that. These two characters here, or figures, appear to be looking out at the viewer, like they're looking to the viewer to solve what's going on. It's like, can you believe this is what we're talking about, and how do you think we should resolve this, is the feeling that you're getting. And you're looking at this one here, really feeling like maybe there's some indignation, maybe perhaps like, what, can you believe what's being said? I don't know that I understand it. Do you understand it? And really feeling like that's focused on the viewer. Is that correct? Fair? And then this person here, you're really feeling some confidence from this figure. And you're thinking the pipe might be what's bringing that up. More like, yeah, this is the way this is going to go down, and I'm already settled, and I'm going to enjoy myself with smoking my pipe. Is that fair? All right. Yes?
I'm really taken by the figure outside the window, who is in a different color. He's the same color as the grass, and we have this contrast between the green and the vividness of the red. To me, that's what really stands out. So I'm thinking that there's an inside vibe going on that seems very angry, and then there's something entirely different going on outside.
Okay. So your eye is drawn to this figure here, yes, and you're wanting to express some things about this, and you're noticing a real contrast, especially in the way this person's clothing is colored. Right. I'm noticing this green, which seems to match the grass that was mentioned earlier, and it's sitting right next to this red flower, which was also mentioned, and we've just got that those complementary colors, really, that high contrast. And so feeling like that creates a separate vibe for you. This, what's going on out here, or this, the way this figure has been highlighted, as opposed to what's happening in here, which you are also getting an angry vibe or uncomfortable vibe between the three. May I ask, what do you see that makes you say these three are not getting along, or the conversation is difficult?
I think it's mostly the color. That predominance of red definitely seems like there's definitely something upsetting the three.
And so the feeling that where you're drawing that feeling of uncomfortableness inside is this presence of this red color.
The young man, he seems younger on the left and back.
This one?
Is looking outside like,
Okay. So bringing up this figure here, the eyes are focused outward, almost like it's like, I wish I could get away, get me out of this situation.
And his color also blends into the color of the wall and curtains, and it's like he's one with a...
Okay. And so then bringing up the artist's choice of color here, it kind of blends into that background and picks up some color from what we're deeming as curtains for that window, feeling like that adds to the idea that this person would just as soon kind of fade away or be out of the situation. Is that fair assessment? I think I saw it. Were you getting ready to read it?
I was just going to say that second guy and the guy outside are both disassociated from the two guys in front.
And by second guy, you mean this figure here and this figure here?
Yeah, they're both looking past in a different direction.
Okay, so we've mentioned that these two figures seem to be looking this way or in the same direction, and these two are not. These two are not engaged in this conversation. They are looking this way and this way, so kind of meeting each other, but not part of this.
Meeting each other, but just someplace else.
Okay, all right, thank you for clarifying. So somewhere else, looking somewhere else. Is that fair? Okay, yes.
The person in green almost looks like he'd be doing his best not to eavesdrop, or to be seen eavesdropping on the conversation. Almost
Okay.
like he'd be holding a book, maybe pretending to read, but also wanting to listen in.
Okay.
Any potential argument that may.
Okay. So feeling like this figure here is trying to not be involved in what's going on or not hear, but also maybe secretly might want to. And you had mentioned that we don't see what's going on back here, but it could be reading a book or something, like walking past, trying to act like I'm not a part of this, but I sure kind of want to hear, but I'm uncomfortable about it. Is that, yes?
Just building on that, I'm kind of noticing maybe for the first time that it doesn't look like there's a window or glass there, like it's open. And so that would add to the idea that he could be listening.
Okay, so kind of building on that, it's got you noticing something different, and that is here where we've got this differentiation between inside and outside. You're not really noticing glass, so it could be an opening, and so it's possible that person could hear what's going on as they're walking by. Yes?
Well, I think something that can contribute to the conversation is the artist has made us look down on the table.
Okay.
And then he's created, or she has created layers. And we have foreground, middle ground, middle ground, and finally background. And I think that's interesting to just think about overlap, placement on the page, and like way up high is the building, and it's far in the distance, and it's placement on the page that's created the space, partly.
Okay.
But, that's, just the composition, that man in the green, without him there, we'd have two different pictures.
This figure
Yeah.
here.
He's an important part of the picture because he's tying together the two guys and the one. Just think of the picture without him there, it would be empty.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think the organization of the piece is interesting to think about, as well as who's looking at what.
Let me capture that last thought, and then we'll end our discussion. So you are wanting to point out to us something that the artist has done and that you're finding interesting. And that would be that, first of all, the viewer's point of view is from up above a little bit. We are looking down at this table. And then you've noticed you're kind of breaking the picture up into four parts. We've got a foreground, a middle ground, and then that background. That's anchored by that structure back there. And you're feeling like this figure here is really what ties those together. If we didn't have this figure here, we would have two separated, kind of disjointed images in this one, and that you're seeing that artist has used that as a way to tie that in. Is that fair? You're
That
finding
long tree has some symbolic. I mean, there's symbolism in this piece,
Okay.
which we've been talking about, but the lone tree, and maybe a bird, I don't know.
Okay, so you're feeling like we could have delved into some symbolism and thinking that that tree and possibly that bird may be the key to that part of the conversation. All right. Well, I need to end it here for time's sake, but I want to thank everybody for their participation, and hopefully you have some more things to think about.
What I want to do is to focus on the skills that the visual thinking strategies develop. So as you were kind of going through this process, thinking about a classroom, a group of kids, a group of adults, what types of skills does this type of activity develop? Okay, so all sorts of critical thinking. So logic would be one of those. Okay, so it's a group participation, so that is collaboration. You're learning how to take turns, you're learning how to listen to each other, so that is a collaborative skill. Observation skills. And there's a question that Kim asked, what do you see that makes you say that reinforces that observation, the visual-based evidence. Okay, we can compare and contrast things. So we were looking at, figures that seemed involved and figures that seemed uninvolved. Okay, so that compare and contrast skill is in there. Yep, yeah. Yep. So positionality. And that is one of the big parts of the facilitator's job, is to affirm that you've been heard, that your answer is valid. So this is also building on social emotional learning skills. It's raising people's self-esteem because they have, and that's why we don't want to give an answer, because then whoever didn't have that answer is going to feel wrong. So that's an important part of it. And as I stress, this isn't an art history activity. This is a skill building activity using a work of art. The other thing I'll point out is that not all classroom teachers have art history, right? But they can still expose their students to works of art. And that is how the curriculum for visual thinking strategies is developed, is they use works of art and they make these available to the classroom teacher. And the artworks are from all cultures, different topics, different age levels. And so by doing these communication activities and looking activities, the kids are getting exposed. So I'm going to just pull up, because I want to give you a chance to go back and look at the 21st century skills that it develops: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity. We call those the 4 C's. Value evidence, understand other perspectives and cultures. And it's not just other cultures. We were listening to each other's perspectives. Okay, so we were learning to respect each other's ideas. And respectful disagreement is a big part of this. And we use this in leadership studies for civic discourse. Respond to communication demands, initiative and independence, comprehending and critiquing. So all of these are skills that can be used. There is much more information in one of the handouts on VTS, an article written by Philip Yenowin and Abigail Housen that will give you a little bit more of the underpinnings. And unless there are questions,